What's up, everybody? It's your guy, Ike Jones. We are here. A-Day has come and gone, but did we learn anything from this new format?
This is the Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C-Dub, Ike Jones, Be Will, Mike G. You are now listening to
Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com /WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. It's springtime, guys, and it's time to get outside with the family. Golden's Cast Iron has you covered. Please go visit them. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Also, I want you to join as a member. We've been on the road a lot lately. I'm exhausted. Ike is exhausted. We traveled the entire NCAA tournament, but the traveling is not done. We've got SEC Media Days coming, and you can help support the work that we're going to bring you guys from Atlanta this year by joining as a member. War for by hitting that gifted membership button. We appreciate our community for doing that. See, we can get 30 memberships given away here today. Also want to thank our friends at Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever it is, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Appreciate our guy Richard for sponsoring this segment.
My bad. Yeah, we here, man. A-Day. Unfortunately, I was not able to be present, but Mike G was there live and in the flesh. Aaron Finney asked the question everybody wants to know, so I need an honest opinion. How did we look yesterday? Before we get into that, Mike, because I know you've got opinions on that, just for everyone who was unaware, this is the first A-Day that wasn't like a full-out game/scrimmage. A-Day has gone through a metamorphosis really since Brian Harsin got here, right? Brian Harsin is who first made the change to the A-Day format, where it wasn't just put some time on the clock, we'll divide it up into two teams, and we'll just go out here. The ones play the number one defense playing against the number two offense, number two, blah, blah, right? Like, this is the first time we haven't had that, was when Brian Harsin got here. And then when Coach Hugh Freeze got in, he was like, yeah, we're going to have this point thing where you're going to put the points up there, and then you got to stop them from getting a certain number of points. We did that the first 2 years. And now we're in this place, which is not unique to Auburn, where it's not even a game. It's really just a practice, and there's a scrimmage session, but it's not a game-like format. So what was your experience with the new format, and how did Auburn look?
Well, this was a practice,
right?
This was just a practice. So the format was, let's just eliminate the game altogether and let's just have a practice. So we saw some skeleton drill. We saw a team kind of period, but it was nothing dissimilar than we would see in a normal open practice during the spring. Now, did we learn anything from this? Should be noted, Jackson Arnold did not participate due to a hamstring deal. They said it's not serious. They just don't want him to aggravate it, but there was no reason for him to go out there. And again, if you're treating this like a practice, we just didn't see any Jackson Arnold. He stood behind the other two quarterbacks most of yesterday. Other than that, it was the Deuce night Perry Thompson show. And let me tell you something. Perry Thompson showed off why he got that 5th star from On 3. This kid can throw the ball. He is accurate.
Oh, you mean Deuce Knight did?
I'm sorry. Yeah. I said Perry Thompson. Deuce is accurate with the football. He's got all the arm strength he needs to make every single throw. And I think he is the future of Auburn football. I want to be clear, though. I don't think that's this year.
Yeah.
I don't think it's this year. But like, look, man, this is a kid. Last year we had top 50 quarterback leave the room. You can't let Deuce Knight out of this quarterback room, no matter how this year goes. You have to keep him in your system for another year, whatever assurances he needs that he knows that he's next up. He's just way too talented to let go of. What we saw on Saturday was we saw some things that he did that he has not done all spring. Now, we reported he had not thrown an interception all spring until Saturday, through a couple. It wasn't like they were just bad. They were things you can fix. They were bad reads. They were bad reads. It was stuff that you can fix. It wasn't like, oh, well, he threw this ball and he didn't have the arm strength to get it there or anything like that. It was just, you go back to the film and you say, son, what were you looking at?
Right.
And you fix that.
Why did you make this throw in this scenario? It wasn't like one of those things where you fault the decision, but you understand he's got the tools to be able to do it because, number one, you've seen him do it. And number two,
right,
the throw wasn't just like this awful looking throw. It's just like, that's not where you should have gone with the football. And to be clear, and I you were there, I wasn't, but I did see video of some stuff where, like, one of the interceptions that he threw, where it's like in a real game, he 100% runs there. Like, he's not even going to attempt to pass. And so because he wasn't live, it does give you a slightly different perspective on kind of the decision making of run or throw in this scenario that you would have gotten from non-contact situations in a practice like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The things that we saw him do on Saturday, to me, are the reasons why there is no quarterback controversy at all. Right? Jackson Arnold is your starter. The things that Deuce did wrong, I do not expect to see Jackson Arnold do. Like, okay. Quite honestly, I expect him to, as a guy who has played as much football as he has at this level, make the right decisions there. Again, another former 5-star guy. So, again, all eyes on quarterback. Great. We didn't learn a ton about the running backs here. I mean, like I said, it was a practice, guys. But I will tell you this: Auburn. I think the bigger story is the Auburn wide receiver room. Auburn's wide receiver room is absolutely loaded. And my guy, Perry Thompson, was the star of the show on Saturday.
And of note, Eric Singleton also did not participate. So
he didn't participate.
You've got a whole other weapon that wasn't even out there.
Yeah. They held him out for precautionary reasons as well, too. But Perry Thompson made every kind of catch you could expect a wide receiver to make in a game on Saturday. He caught wide open passes. He caught contested passes. He caught diving passes. I mean, yeah, he caught one-handed passes. He was balling out there yesterday, and it was nice to see because I think he got lost in a lot of the shuffle of Cam Coleman, and then Keandre came in, and he was a guy stuck with Auburn here. And man, you got to get Perry Thompson into the rotation. You have to get him into the rotation. I don't care how good Eric Singleton is, right? I think you have to find some snaps for Perry Thompson. Can't go like it went last year. He's just way too talented, man, and he clearly has matured so far this spring. So, look, Hugh Freeze has been open about saying that he feels like the way to build this is through high school, right? So, don't shun your high school guys. And Perry Thompson is your high school guy. So, yeah, I was impressed with him yesterday. I'm telling you, he looked fast. He looked strong. His hands looked good. He was catching it with his hands, with his body. He was making good decisions out there. His routes were crisp. And I think most excitingly, the quarterbacks were putting the ball on the money. So we saw a good combination of really good routes matched with really good throws. And I think that should be worth another 700 to 800 yards in the passing game over what Auburn did last year. So it was fun. It was fun watching Perry Thompson out there balling yesterday. Great weather for football. We've been very unlucky with the weather a couple of years in the past when it's come to A-Day. Hugh Freeze stuck around after, took pictures with fans, did what he could. But it was interesting watching them out there.
All right. So, I mean, good showing from Perry Thompson, probably up and down showing from Deuce Knight. I think a lot of people were coming into this with a lot of the buzz around Deuce Knight, expecting him to go out there and light it up, and he's going to be slinging it all over the field and flawless, blah, blah. Maybe that has quieted a bit of the the hype train for Deuce Knight, seeing him make some mistakes. It's like, oh, okay, well, he is still a freshman. So, all right, let's maybe settle down a little bit. Because I do think the rhetoric had gotten a little hyperbolous. Like, it was a little overblown where it's like, I don't know how you're going to keep this kid off the field his freshman year. And it's like,
this is how
he deserves
right,
to
yeah.
play.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Experience and turnovers.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there's not a whole lot of, you can't replace the type of experience that Jackson Arnold, I think, is going to be bringing into the position this year. Look, there was some talk about Jackson Arnold passing up the what was it, the Manning passing camp or whatever, in favor of building chemistry with his wide receivers. I thought it was a very mature decision. Yeah, it sounds good, the Manning passing camp, and you go out there. But look, man, you got a bunch of receivers that you're trying to get to know right now. I thought it showed a lot of leadership and maturity to opt for that over, what they're doing right now, right? Like, so, this thing. In the press conference, I got a chance to ask Hugh Freeze that about having only two quarterbacks. This is something we talked about on the show, right? You only have to focus on Deuce Knight and Jackson Arnold this spring. And look, he said it's been a blessing. We've gotten to teach these guys a lot of things and focus, and I don't have to pretend to split reps. People thought I was joking when I said this was actually a good thing, and Hugh Freeze came out and said it in the post game. He said, look, man, we don't have to, we've been able to do a lot of teaching. These guys have matured a lot, and he feels that his team has benefited a lot from only having those two guys in the quarterback room this spring.
Yeah. I mean, he was, says he made mention of in that post game about the NFL model of how many quarterbacks that they carry in the NFL. It's usually only 3, right? And they have traditionally, in most college teams, you carry 4 scholarship quarterbacks. And he's like, well, maybe we need to change that thinking and then, shrink it to 3 scholarship guys, and you carry an additional big, whether it is an offensive lineman or defensive lineman, to give yourself more depth up front, which is something that they will 100% probably now that he's had the experience of having a spring where it's limited rotation, limited reps. He's only had 2 scholarships and a walk-on quarterback as the rotational guys. He's thinking, okay, maybe this is the right way to do this going forward. And there are less guys that you have to try to. And this is something Bruce Pearl talks about with basketball, right? The reason why he doesn't use all of his scholarships is he does not want to overpromise things to guys to get them to sign a scholarship, and then he's not able to get you minutes, and then you walk away saying, man, Bruce Pearl sold me a dream. And it's like, well, no, I didn't actually. I told you exactly what your role was going to be coming in. This is where you are as of today, and this is what you've got in front of you to get playing time. And it's hard to do that when you're carrying 4 and 5 quarterbacks on a roster, and all of them were highly like every year you've got to try to figure out how to get the best quarterback available for you. And those are, if you're a program like Auburn, that should be at least a 4-star guy that could likely go and start at a lot of programs in a lot of places. But how do you keep that guy happy sitting on the bench?
Well, that was what the discussion was with Walker White. Everybody was worried, like, how does Walker climb this depth chart? If they're constantly going to the portal, this kid recruited for Auburn. He was an Auburn guy. Right. And at the end of the day, all these guys left that quarterback room last year because they could not see a path to playing time that made sense for them. Now, I don't fault them for that, but I think that this is something that we have to get used to. High-level recruiting means high-level attrition every single year, Ike. You're going to have kids who you recruited in the top 50 walk out of your program.
Right.
Now, if you're Auburn, you can't afford for those kids to be quarterbacks. You need quarterbacks to stay in this room. And so, I think you did what you needed to do. You got a guy in Jackson Arnold that hopefully sets a safe floor for you this year. And then you have a guy in Deuce Knight who, let's be clear, best case scenario is happening right now for Auburn. Deuce Knight is not ready to start the season, but he's progressing much faster than they anticipated. Now, one of his lead recruiters was Kenyatta Watson. If you don't know Kenyatta, he does a lot of recruiting for Auburn. Great guy. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Auburn owes a lot of their recruiting success to his recruiting prowess.
Mm-hmm.
I got a chance to talk to him, and he could not stop glowing about how quickly Deuce had progressed. Right. There were a lot of guys who wanted Juju Lewis and, all these other kids. And, man, betting on the right horse is hard.
It is. It's one of the toughest. Like, all of these kids are good. Which one is going to be ready and which one is going to be patient and which one is going to merge well with what you're trying to do and ask them to do, and which one is going to be like there. It is a crapshoot figuring out quarterback, and more programs get this wrong than programs that get this right consistently. People get luck up on a guy every now and then, but there are very few programs that consistently get this right.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's very difficult trying to project what a guy will be. But, you can recruit top 50 kids for this reason. It's because we talk about this when we talk about recruiting rankings. We say the difference between like the number 10 class and the number 7 class is minuscule, right? It's really about how well did you fill your needs for that class? Because if you've got a top 10 class, you got a lot of really talented kids.
Right. And not to bash him. I know people get upset when we do this and we go back, but this is what we were saying about the Gus Malzahn tenure. It's like, yes, he was getting highly rated recruit top 20 classes, but he wasn't filling the needs as consistently as he needed to. You neglected the trenches for so long that it didn't really matter that you had this, at the time, one of the best wide receiver recruiting classes ever, because the quarterback's not going to have time to throw the football. Yes, you went out and you got Bo Nix, who was a highly touted high school recruit and ended up being a really good collegiate football player. You could never protect him. You could never figure out a scheme that worked well with him. So it's not just about getting highly rated guys. It's about getting the right guys that fit. And then what you said, filling the needs on your roster through that high school, because the transfer portal wasn't even like a big thing like it is now. So you had to do it via high school. And that was, to me, the failure of the Malzahn tenure.
Right. Not only that, but I feel like during the Gus tenure, they misevaluated a lot of those guys. Right. So yes, they were highly rated kids, but you got the wrong highly rated kids. Somehow you picked the kids that busted more often than not. Right. And so this is what we talk about. I talked about this with Charlie Five or my guy Kyle Rush over on the Auburn Express. It's if both Deuce and Jackson don't do well this year, I think it's pretty safe to say Auburn has a evaluation issue, a development issue, or both.
Right.
You can't have this many guys come through and not do well. So that's why I'm telling you, a lot of people are listening to the Deuce night hype, and they're thinking, oh, well, you guys are hyping Deuce over Jackson. No. It's a celebration that it appears as if, for the first time in a long time, they picked the right guy.
Right.
They got their guy. Now, I don't know how Juju Lewis is doing. I got to check in on some of the other quarterbacks in this class and see how they've been doing this so far this spring and how they project. But, it was – what did we hear about Walker last year? All we heard was, he's having a tough time picking it up. It's, he's talented, but he's this project and all this stuff. And meanwhile,
he consistently said what you consistently heard, not just from Coach Freeze, but from really players, other coaches, other people who were evaluating is, he's swimming right now. Right. Like that was the phrase I heard more and more and more about Walker White is like talent's there. Like he's got the arm strength. But he's swimming right now. You haven't really heard a lot of that about Deuce Knight. Like he doesn't seem as if it is overwhelmed. He's not ready, but it's not overwhelming him. It's the difference between someone who has learned how to, like me, for instance, I can swim. You throw me in some water. I can get you a couple of laps, but I'm not going to compete at an Olympic level, right? So Deuce Knight is like, yeah, I can get in the water and I can go out there and da. But I'm not ready to be an elite swimmer right now. That doesn't mean I can't swim. It seemed as if when Walker White, you tossed him in the water and he's just out there fighting waves, right? And so and it's becoming a lot, and it's overwhelming him more than it was him actually seeming like he's functioning out there in the midst of all that he's being asked to do. And this sounds like a revisionist history indictment on Walker White. This is what has been said about Walker White the entirety of last year. That doesn't mean he would never get there. It just meant he was not there at the end of spring last year. And he made a lot of progress through the fall, and that they trusted him a little bit more, but it does make you feel as if, okay, he saw the right handwriting on the wall a little bit. It's like, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get playing time in front of this guy who has more eligibility than me just now coming in, if he's going to come in and already have this level of whatever it is that he has. Hadn't seen him practice yet, which is why I always thought Walker White should have at least stayed through the spring. But hey, listen, you got to make your own decisions about and a lot of that has to do with a lot of other stuff that we're not talking about. But still, I think he made the right decision for himself, which is go and get in the situation where I'm at least guaranteed to be number 2, because that doesn't feel as if what we know about Deuce Knight today, he'd have been guaranteed number 2 coming out of the fall.
Look, the way that Deuce is hitting right now, I think it would have been difficult for Walker. That's just me. But it felt like the coaches had moved on from Walker based on things they kept saying in the media and things that we were hearing privately. It felt like they were like, all right, we like this kid. He's a good kid, but he's not picking it. It's not happening fast enough for him. And look, at the end of the day, you need a situation where guys have time to develop. Which
was the problem in the Bo Nix situation. Let's be clear about that. He didn't have time to develop.
He needed time to develop, right? Yeah, and I don't care how it ended. Like the fact that it took 3 years at Auburn and then finally landed at Oregon, and it starts to click, right, in the conference. By the way, where like everybody's just passing for 3,000 yards. The talent is clear. At the end of the day, the results, Bo got drafted. I think he had a really good rookie season.
Yeah.
Right. For all intents and purposes, he won the starting job in camp, if I remember correctly. And showed flashes of that talent that they saw when he came into Auburn.
Right.
But the problem was Gus needed him to be that dude from day one.
Right.
And he wasn't going to be. And Gus didn't know how to get him there. He didn't know how to make him that dude from day one. So, moving forward, right, it feels like Hugh needs guys who can be that dude from day one, which means you can't miss when you pick your quarterbacks. Because if you can't, I don't know that we've seen anything so far in the first 2 years that says at Auburn, he knows how to get a guy there. If you take the average of Peyton Thorne's first 2 years at Auburn, he is less than what he was at his peak at Michigan State. So, he had a better.
Yes, by the numbers, I'd argue Peyton Thorne was the same quarterback at Michigan State. His numbers reflected a little bit better, but I don't know.
Yeah, and that's fair. I'm not going to argue that point with you. He also was going up against much tougher competition, I think, in the SEC. That's just me. The Big Ten is not super far behind, but it's still the SEC.
Now, again, there were deficiencies for sure in the way he was. The first year made no sense. Like, I don't even understand what they were doing offensively in the first year with Peyton Thorne and trying to turn him into a running quarterback. Like, none of that made any sense to me. The utilization of the run game in the second year didn't make sense to me. So,
but that's my point about what they did with him.
Yeah.
Right. So again, show me, that you have a plan for these guys, or if you just need that dude. That's what we kept saying about Gus. Stop pretending like this system doesn't need an athletic quarterback. You need one, or you need somebody who is super dynamic with their arm. I thought Jarrett Stidham was that dude. Best pure passer in Auburn history. I'll die on that hill. So, Deuce appears to have a lot of the things that they are going to want down the road. And if Jackson has a good year and they can get Auburn to 8 wins, then yeah, man, I give Hugh Freeze 3-4 more years to work this thing out with Deuce. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
For this year, right? This is the prove it year for me. Can't miss a bowl game. I still think we talked about this on the last show. Somebody asked, "Hey, would you guys be happy with 7 wins?" We went down the schedule. We're like, look, judging from this schedule, 7 would be rough.
Yeah, again, I can't look back at the end of a 7-win season at the end of what we're looking at as far as the road that they have to get and feel like I'd be happy about where they are.
Yeah,
To me, it feels as if you lose 5 or 6 of those games, then your program is not where it needs to be. Or we have to just concede that these other programs have surpassed Auburn, right? Like, because there's no way, and I don't want to go back into it too much. It's hard for me as a person who has been an Auburn fan for multiple decades of life now to stomach a life in which Vanderbilt is a better football program than Auburn. Like that's going to be very tough for me to digest.
That's a great point of reference, right? Like
it's going to be really tough for me to sit and listen to a reason why we would lose a game at home to Kentucky. Like I don't know how I'm gonna feel good about that.
Let me put it this way, Ike. If a Vandy fan and an Auburn fan walk into a bar on a Saturday to watch football, the Auburn fan should always be having more fun than the Vandy fans.
100%.
No Vandy fan should ever be having more fun than you, unless they're beating Bama.
Right.
We'll accept that. Any other week, I don't care. You're right. It's a great point of reference. You got to get the program to a point where you are in that upper 5 teams in the conference. You got 16 teams in conference now, right? Top 5 teams in the conference. I still think Georgia sits on top. Texas is on top. After that, you probably got Alabama still. I hate to say it, but Ole Miss, South Carolina climbed the ranks last year. Boy, did they have a hot end to their season last year. They gave voters a lot to think about. But they've just got to get it back there, man. And part of that is finding dynamic quarterback play. I would go back to the playoffs and point to that Arizona-Texas game. Perfect example. Hats off to Arizona State. Hats off to Kenny Dillingham's squad. But recruiting won in that game. In overtime, when they needed
some bad officiating.
Quinn Ewers delivered the throws, man, that they needed. And they won the game. And while you're Arizona State and you had a great season and Cameron Scatterboo was dynamic and all that, recruiting won. And Kenny Dillingham knew it because as soon as it was over, the first thing he said was, please give us money. This is not sustainable. If you like what you saw this year, we need money to keep it happening. Please go donate. He knows it. So, I mean, and if you're Hugh Freeze, you believe this because you've preached it since you came in the door.
Yeah.
Well, the first message he sent to Auburn fans was, we got to get in the top 6 or 7 in recruiting quickly.
But notice in his post-game or in his post-A-Day presser yesterday, this is the first season that you actually heard him say, we should be competitive this year. Last year, he backed off of the, roster deficient. Like he moved away from the roster deficiency thing because he felt like what he said last year is we're talented, but we're young, right? Yeah. He wasn't talking about talent last year. He said we're young. This year, he was very clear. Again, you have to hear all the words Coach Hugh Freeze says because he's going to tell you exactly what he's thinking at some point in time. He gives very long-winded responses, and you hear him. He's going to tell you exactly what he said. We should be competitive this year. That tells you where he thinks like this roster has what this roster has turned into from a talent standpoint as of right now. He said they should be competitive. So now no one should feel bad for saying we should win more than 7 games this year. To me, competitive in this league means you win your cupcakes, which you get 3 of them, and you go out there with you win 4 games within your conference at least to get you to 7. You're hoping you get to 5 wins in conference, or at least 4 games in conference, and then when you're out of conference, Power 4 contest. That's how you get to 8. Yeah. But he said it himself, so I'm not holding Hugh Freeze to a different standard than he's already given us to hold him to. He said it.
Yeah, I agree. Look, yeah, I think that's another good point. It was the first time we've heard him not make the talent excuse, or like, I mean, I didn't hear any excuses from him. He's just like, look, it's time to get it done.
Yeah,
pretty much. This year is the year to get it done. He understands that, and because they have that urgency, that makes me feel a little bit better that the product that fans are going to get this year, Ike, is going to be better than what we've seen the first 2 years. So now's the time to make a leap. We say it so often, like when you recruit, you never know how good a recruiting class is until about year 3 or 4, depending on the cycle, because those kids have to get in the program. You know, we talk about offensive line being such a developmental position. It takes a year or 2 to catch your body up to Power 4 football, play physicality level. So, but with the advent of the portal, teams are doing it faster. There's an expectation that that's going to happen faster. Now, go out and get the guys that you need. I do this segment with the guys over at Locked On the Portal, and we talk about, if you want to fix your O-line, there's not a ton of good O-line in the portal every year. You could maybe hope to find 1, maybe 2 gems in the portal at O-line. But for the most part, you have to home grow your O-line.
Right.
You got to recruit them out of high school. You got to get them in your strength and conditioning, and you have to.
It's going to be difficult year over year to find 5 new guys that you can plug in for an offensive line that are going to be serviceable and have you be able to win out the. That's like, if that's your plan. Yeah, if that's your plan, come on, bro.
Yeah. You got patchworking a portal O-line. So Freeze understood that. I got to buy my quarterbacks time by putting together a serviceable O-line. I keep talking about this, but it feels like he's saying, look, it's harder for me to find that dude at quarterback. So let me give him the best receivers, the best line, the best running backs, the best everything else I can give them, so that my QB can go out there and just be okay, a little better than average, and we can win games.
And if you happen to hit on a guy who is amazing, then we're going to be amazing, right? Like if he's slightly above average, we're going to win games and we're going to go out there and compete. But if he happens to be that dude for real, watch out.
Watch out. Yeah. So that's where I've always kind of been at with this. It's a tough game to be in, but this is where Auburn's at. They've got to figure out a way to make it work. I think that they will make it work. But they've got to find ways to win games this year. Now, I do, before we move on, because I know we got to get to the break, I do want to talk about that schedule one more time and remind people like what it is that Auburn faces in those first few games. Now, to me, Ike, this season is all about how Auburn comes out of the first 6 games, because the last 6 games really manageable. Super manageable. But the first 6 games, oh boy. All right, so you start off with Baylor. You're in Waco. I think this should be a win. Personally, I think this should be a win. I love that my boy Walker White is there, but Walker, I wish nothing but L's for you on August 29th, 2025. Ball State should be a win. South Alabama, right there. Auburn should be 3-0 to start the season. Then you start SEC play, and you got a stretch of Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Georgia. Beside Georgia, I don't think I could sit here and say that Texas A&M. I know Mike Elko did well at A&M in his first year, but are those 2 teams clearly better than Auburn right now? Last year you had Oklahoma on the ropes. As a matter of fact, right? Like I attribute Jackson Arnold's dysfunction last year to Oklahoma.
Yes.
You guys were terrible offensively last year, and they still came into Auburn and got a win, but like, are they that much better than Auburn? I don't think so. I don't know if they're better at all. So if you can maybe come out of that stretch 5-1, Georgia, man, Georgia's not the Georgia of the past, but it's just an L until Auburn wins one. versus Georgia. That's how I feel about that. Right, like I'm not gonna find a lot of optimism for that game until it just happens. When it happens, I'll be happy. But until then, I'm always gonna look at the schedule, see Georgia on there, and be like, "L." Right. However, 5-1, maybe 4-2 out of that stretch, I think would be acceptable because after Georgia, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vandy, Mercer, I think that's a 5-game winning streak right there potentially.
Should be 100%. Like I said, I think I'm gonna be spitting nails if we're not at the end of that streak, winning all those games. Yes.
Yeah. So it really is about, can you come out of that first 6-game stretch above 500? Just 4-2. That means you got to clean the first 3. And you got to win 1 SEC game. Then you get a chance to go on an epic run over the last half of the schedule, kind of like what South Carolina did last year, which leads you to an Iron Bowl in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And this year, we'll have 2 big-ass scoreboards to see the glory of beating Kalen DeBoer. Come on, man. This is the year, and I think
Auburn is such an engineering and architectural school. Let me just, because bro, man, they put that joint up fast, bro. Like, again, I'm comparing this to the restructure that happened at Vanderbilt Stadium, which took an eon and a half, and I'm not even sure they're done yet. I have no idea, but like, good Lord, like, I don't know who did the planning over there for that, but and Vanderbilt's like, they got some smart people over there.
Yeah,
clearly is doctors and not not civil engineers and architects. Because man,
so yeah, 8A was 8A. It was a practice. Like I said, I liked the fan engagement after. I think they did a lot after to try to make up for the fact that it wasn't a traditional 8A game, right? Since they just kind of went through a practice, it wasn't as grueling as it has been in past. You know, the players were fresh to interact with fans. Coach Hugh Freeze had his own tent set up where he was taking pictures with fans. Look, man, I'm always a fan of the head ball coach engaging directly with fans. Guys getting to come up and say, I stood there for a while while people walked up and said, "Hey, coach, how's it going? You know, thank you so much for everything you're doing." Like, you know, those interactions mean a lot, right? And, you know, I've interacted with, I've done like 3 sit-downs, 3 or 4 one-on-one sit-downs with Hugh Freeze since he's been at Auburn. He's always been very gracious with his time. I feel like when we've gotten a chance to sit down with him one-on-one, we get more than just standard, you know, coach speak answers. But those interactions mean so much to fans, and I'm happy that he does not take those for granted, right? You are here, you know, because there were people going at me on social media, Ike, about what fans deserve, right? And I'm like, yeah, man, the people who paid money last year and sold out every game last season in a losing season deserve a little something in the offseason. They do. Because in a couple months, you're going to be begging everybody to spend their hard-earned money to travel their whole family down to Auburn, pay for tickets, hotel room, maybe, food. It's expensive. And support you. So, yes, fans do deserve, I argue with a wall on this one. I'm telling you, fans deserve something back from the program that they invest their money and time into, especially with how much they're asking for NIL dollars from donors and fans. You owe back. You owe back. And that's why I didn't like the cutting of the spring game format, but I did appreciate that on the back end, they spent the time with the fans after the game signing autographs more so than they have in the past.
And they made it free. They didn't make you pay for this experience.
Correct. Right. And they didn't ticket it, which was nice. Right. So, look, man, 8A was exciting. Again, I know we got to get to the break here. In some ways, like I said, I was looking at specific players. I still think Perry Thompson is my 8A MVP. Perry Thompson was my MVP, and I'm a Perry Thompson guy. Like, I've been a Cam Coleman guy. You know, he's from the crib. I had a really funny moment. Yesterday I was walking up to the state. I had to park really far away. And as soon as I pulled in, I had a flat tire. So I knew I was coming back to a flat tire after the game. And so it was a hard mood. And one of the great things I love about Auburn is there's always somebody in a golf cart ready to pick you up. So for those of you who've been following my lupus journey, it comes with a little bit of a heart issue. So sometimes the long walks don't always jive with me. And the guy says, "Hey, Mike G, you want to ride?" I'm like, "Yeah, all right." So I hop on the cart. I see B-Matt from Rivals, and I say, "Can we grab B-Matt?" And B-Matt's like, "Thank you so much, man. I had a 10-minute walk." I'm like, "Yeah." And then we're riding along, and I hear my name be yelled, "Hey, Mike, what is it?" And I turn back. Guy driving the car said, "I think that's Cam Coleman's dad." I was like, "Bobby, you crazy?" So we turn around, we grab Bobby, we get up to the stadium. Everybody's in a great mood. And I'll tell you, like, I thought they did a good job trying to set a good tone for A-Day, right? I was skeptical. I was very skeptical headed into it. And when I saw all the fan engagement stuff the day of, I wasn't totally disappointed. Like, a lot of my disappointment dissipated. And I said, okay, right. It wasn't what we would have wanted as media, but at least they took care of the fans on the back end, which is what A-Day should always be about, should be about the fans. We're trying to gather information. It wasn't televised this year for the first long time. It wasn't televised.
I mean, be there. What was the point of televising that?
Yeah, right. It's just a practice. I always wonder how the networks feel about that, because they have made the spring games a whole network event, right? Like on the streaming services and the ESPN Plus and ESPN Plus and all this stuff. But we didn't have all that this year, and I don't know they didn't give us the final numbers this year. I didn't know if I succeeded. Did you see an email with the final numbers?
I don't recall, but then again, I wasn't looking for it. So
yeah, like I think last year it was like 33,000 or something like that. So I don't think it was 33,000 last year.
And I don't even know if they counted the gate because it was free. So
yeah, they had this thing where we had to guess the number last year, and I know right. I remember it was 33,000 because I was the one who guessed closest in media, but it wasn't that, but it was still a good amount. And I think, you go out, you win some games next year, spring's going to be huge. Like I said, I liked the vibe around the program yesterday. I really did. Guys looked happy. They looked engaged. We got a chance to talk to some players after, Deuce, some of the other guys. Man, look, it's Auburn's got a favorable schedule this year, I think. It's the SEC, so then there's no such thing as a cakewalk. But this might be one of the most favorable schedules they've had in quite some time, Mike. Right? Bama and Georgia at home, and then that last half of the schedule sets up for you to go on an epic run. Right? Even if they get out of the first 6 games 3-3, right? You win 5 straight, you're 8-3 headed into a Bama matchup. 9-3, your fringe playoff team in the SEC. That's what South Carolina was last year. So, we'll see. But they've got to log some marquee wins this year. And then if you beat Bama in your last game, man, I don't know, man. I think people are going to be looking at Auburn thinking, it's going to be hard to deny that the program is headed the right direction if that's the result that you get. Spring is our first indication that the program is headed the right direction. And we heard some different things this spring, right, than we've heard in previous springs. I like the things that you noted about Hugh Freeze's tone being different this year from last year. In that press conference, talking about recognizing that this year is the year that they have to get it done. Right. No excuses. I didn't hear one excuse for anything. I just heard cold hard facts. We needed to sit this guy out. We had to do this. We had to do that. We feel good about where we're at. And I saw enough on the field yesterday to back up the assertions that he was making about what they feel good about. And the people that we've talked to close to the program, it's a pretty unified voice. In terms of what Auburn is doing, and I'm telling you, that hasn't always been the case the first couple of years. So this is it, man. This is the last little bit we get until fall camp. We'll be at media days, and we'll talk to the guys out in Atlanta this year. But I found a way to enjoy yesterday. I hope fans did too.
For sure. All right. We are going to take a quick break, and we will go for the rest of the way taking comments from you guys on what your thoughts are. Plenty of stuff being said in the chat. You guys are watching this here Weekend Tailgate. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share the content with somebody. We'll be right back after this quick word from our sponsors.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opalaikarageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
You guys know the deal. goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. 310 of y'all. Man, if 5 of you guys became Golden's customers today, that would make us so happy. Golden's has been telling us you guys are buying the weights. Love to hear that, man. I wish I could get back to the weights. I miss the weights. I need to get back in shape. I need to get on a summer body plan. I need to do it. I was on the wagon for a little bit. I fell off. I'm going to jump back on with Golden's Cast Iron. You should too. Also, hit that join button. Join the Green Name Gang. I see lots of green names in the chat, but I still see some black names in there. Nothing wrong with the black names, but we appreciate the green ones more so. $5.99 a month. Help support the work that we're doing. As I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, we will be in Atlanta. Myself, Ike Jones, reporting live from the College Football Hall of Fame during SEC Media Days, bringing you guys lots of great Auburn-only content. So we appreciate you guys for doing that. It's also memberships given away on the first half. On this back half, let's see if we can get a few more given away. We appreciate you guys for helping us grow our community. If you're watching this and you are not a member, keep an eye on your email. YouTube chooses these at random. We have no control over it, but I don't think that there is an expiration date on when you can renew them. So you may have won one and just didn't know to look for it. Check your email and see if you've got a gifted membership sitting in there. Ike's doing lots of great member-only content for you guys, which includes my favorite thing, film reviews. So if you want to break down film with Ike Jones, you can do that behind the paywall. YouTube doesn't let us monetize that content, but certainly we appreciate you guys for coming on board and supporting that work that he's doing there. Also want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORTER to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. It's going to be a stressless spring, hopefully. But Auburn baseball is tearing it up on the diamond. Most recently, they put hands on Alabama. We were really happy to see that from San Antonio. Hopefully, they deliver more of those moments. But the Rogue Shop can help keep you calm through it all. We appreciate them. And last but certainly not least, guys, check us out on podcasts. Every single podcast platform, the War Report is there, bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. So whether you're on your way to work or to the gym or just dropping the kids off at school, we've got you covered with all your Auburn content, the Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec pods, bringing you guys lots of great Auburn content in audio format.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate everybody who has continued to support what we got going on. Speaking of support, I Am the Kings gifted 5 War Report memberships. So 5 new people have access to that member-only content. Appreciate you very much for that. Super chat here from Anthony Long, who said, last year, Coach Hugh Freeze said that mentally, Peyton Thorne was an extension of himself on the field based on decisions PT made. I think it would be safe to wait and see the W's on Saturday before we believe we will be competitive based on a Coach Hugh Freeze quote. This is fair. This is fair.
That's fair. But I don't know that we're basing it completely on the quote, right? Like it's about the quote combined with the things that we saw. Right. And the other things that we're hearing. I'm just so happy to see Perry Thompson take that next step. I didn't want to see him leave this program. Like I want to see Perry Thompson become a star at Auburn. You know, my favorite Auburn receiver that never was is Nate Craig Myers.
Mm-hmm.
I was convinced that guy was going to be a star here, and it just never happened. And I thought he had all the talent. It just didn't click for him for some reason. A couple different programs. Did he go to UCF? I know he went to Colorado State, and he tried his hands at a couple of different places. But Perry Thompson is a guy who should retire an Auburn Tiger at the college level. Seeing him, excuse me, have the kind of spring that he had, step in the right direction. So, put all those things together with what Coach Hugh Freeze is saying. And I think it's a little different, Anthony, but I understand any trepidation you may have about things being said in the spring. Like, I get it.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I haven't made any predictions for a schedule or record based on anything. What I've talked about is holding him to the standard of his words, right? And so the only thing that I've made a commitment to is saying he said Auburn should be competitive with this roster. So I expect Auburn to go out there and be competitive this year. Last year, he said that Peyton Thorne was, seeing the same stuff that he was seeing, and it didn't translate out there on the field. I think that is actually an indication that this year, if he says Auburn should be competitive and they're not competitive, it shows you how out of touch Coach Hugh Freeze actually is with the reality of where his team / players are from spring to how that translates to the fall, right? And so I think you now have evidence to show that where he thinks they are is not where they actually are, based upon a pattern of things that he said versus what's happened. And so, I think you take him at his word until his word proves to be something contradictory to what the reality is. And so I don't think one instance of that bears that out, but I do think repeated instances of that shows, okay, does he know what a competitive football team should look like in the spring? Because you told me last spring that you have the talent to go out there and compete. So I expect to see that.
Absolutely.
Dustin jumps in and says, from a fan standpoint, it's quite a bit more lame than years prior, but from a coaching practical standpoint, it's better. Speaking of the A-Day format. I don't disagree that it is a little less exciting for fans to go and see a non-game like situation / scrimmage. Again, this is not something that's unique to Auburn, and I'm not accusing you of saying that it's unique to Auburn, Dustin. I'm just making the statement. And so I think it's just the direction that college football is going to go. And going back to something you said earlier, Mike, about the TV stations, maybe this puts a little bit of pressure on the networks to get with the conferences to figure out what coaches are asking for by and large, which is let us go play somebody else that's not us in a preparation type game, right? Let Auburn play against Alabama State down the road or Troy down the road and figure out how we can make it a competitive type of environment where we're not playing against our own guys. Because, in reality, coaches are saying, I don't want to give away too much, but they'd be fine doing that as long as they're playing somebody who's not their own team, right? So right. I think the reality is that we just need a format change in the way.
Yeah, I'll almost be okay with like them even playing a competitive flag football game during the spring versus another. Flag football is now an Olympic sport.
Yeah, well, they had the alumni flag football game before the regular, but yeah. So you want to see,
it would be cool to see high-level athletes out there playing flag football. I mean, something where they can show off their speed, route running, and you could run. I don't know how blocking factors into that. So that'd be something different. Again, if you don't know, the highlight of yesterday was a drill that they call Skelly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if other colleges call it something different, but they've been calling it Skelly since I was filming, as a student videographer for Auburn. But there are no lines essentially in skeleton drill, and it's mostly passing, but it's you get to see some really exciting stuff during this drill. And Auburn ran a lot of that yesterday, and we got to see Deuce Knight show off his arm. We got to see the receivers show off their catch radius and ability, and it was still really, really fun to watch. So I think that there's a version of this where you can compete against another. I mean, what's wrong with running that against another college, right? Invite Alabama State down, and again, just don't let them hit each other if you're worried about health. But seeing them run, they do this in the NFL, don't they? During OTAs, they scrimmage against other NFL teams.
Yes,
right. And those things get highly competitive. I mean, there are videos every year, fights breaking out. I don't want to see that necessarily, but I think that there is a way to do some version of this that doesn't make it a full game that risks the health of the athletes or risks a season. Right, because the first time one of these kids gets hurt in these games, they're going to want to shut it all down. Like, see, this is why you shouldn't be doing any of this. But I think there's a happy medium there. Guys get hurt in the spring, non-contact all the time.
Right.
So either way, there's risk. I don't think you eliminate the risk 100%.
There's no way to eliminate the risk without having you can have non-contact injuries, right? Like injuries are going to happen in a contact sport. Injuries are going to happen when you're physically exerting your body over and over again. Some people push themselves too hard. freak turned an ankle, just like trying to run a route, like it happens. And so this idea that you're going to eliminate injuries from the spring is nonsensical. So you just need to find a way to be able to do it to make sure that everybody is getting the most productivity out of that time. And I think that we've devolved into a place where the spring games have become unproductive, and they have been for show, because listen, we've had years and years and years of 8A heroes that never saw the field, right? And so like you don't actually learn anything from these games, and it's time we start trying to figure out how we can, well, I won't say you don't learn anything, you definitely learn something, but the value of it has to be placed in the proper perspective. And I think sometimes people overblow what happens during these spring scrimmages, and thinking, oh man, that means we're going to be in this. Like, that's not what that means. Actually, you don't know whether or not you have a good running game or a terrible run defense. You don't know whether or not you've got a prolific passing offense or an awful pass defense. You don't know any of that stuff. You don't even know that if your field goal kicker goes out there and is 5 for 5 on A-Day, that he's going to actually be able to make field goals in real games. Like, you don't know any of that stuff. We literally saw it happen last year, where we was like, oh man, we got a player at field goal kicker, and he was not good last year. He just wasn't. Towns was not good last year. A-Day didn't tell you anything. So it is what it is.
That's a fact. Boy, we thought he was going to win the Lou Groza after A-Day last year. Boy, yikes.
Yeah. James Barnett says, fellas, what's more likely? We go 10-2 or 12-0? With this roster and schedule, it's hard for me to see anything less. Well, if you're only giving me those options, 10-2 is the more likely of the two. I don't think either of those is very likely, but I do think that if those are my two choices, I'm going to opt for the one where Auburn is not flawless in the season.
Yeah, 10-2 will get you in the playoffs.
Yeah,
if you, a 10-2 Auburn team is 100% in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't. I mean, because presumably, like, the only two losses that you could see guaranteed on that schedule, well, not even guaranteed, but it would be Georgia and Alabama.
I see.
Well,
That's the first thought that you have, but it's like, I don't even want to say that we're only going to lose those games. I'd rather say they fall on the road to Texas A&M and lose to Georgia or Bama.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that would warm my heart. It would, but especially since you got Georgia and Bama at home, so
right.
don't want to watch two L's in Jordan-Hare this season. But look, man, 9-3 is a good season, and I think I don't mind the bug, but I think part of we just have to set expectations realistically year over year, so that we're not burdening coaches with unrealistic expectations for where their roster should be. All that was expected in year 3 was that Auburn would have a competitive team that is in the conversation come November, right? How that November goes will tell us a lot about where the program is at. But, if they are 6-2 headed into November, then they're having a really good year at that point, in my opinion. Right. And how you finish will tell you how good a season you're going to have. So if you win the last 4, Ike, you're 10-2. If you split them, you're 8-4. If you lose more than you win,
which is known as the Brian Harsin plan.
Yeah. Right. Then, right. If you go over in November, then
I still am so like, golly, man, I go back to that first year of Brian Harsin, and they were in this exact scenario that you're talking about. 6-2 going into this last stretch, and it, in the most colossal way, fell apart.
Yeah.
Starting quarterback gets hurt.
It was so bad.
It was, oh my God, it was so terrible. I was just like, yo, this is not life, man. What are we doing?
What happened? What happened? So again, get to November 6-2. I think that should be the goal. And because you're already in a bowl game at that point, so you've secured a bowl game by the end of October, and then it's all about how you finish after that, right? If you beat Alabama, presumably the worst you're going to do in that month is 2-2. But beating them probably means that I don't know, man. It's like finish. They have a chance to finish strong. The schedule sets up for them to finish strong, because over that last half, there aren't any teams that scare me, man. Like Missouri, I think they might actually be frauds at everything they do. They might actually be the most fraudulent school in the history of schools. Arkansas, they're shaping Auburn right now. Kentucky, Vandy. I get it. We can't beat Pavia, but Mercer, obviously, no. There's at least one win sitting in there in November. So, like, you just have to beat Kentucky or Vanderbilt to split. That's not, to me, that's not a tall task.
Yeah.
Right? You just beat Kentucky or Vanderbilt to go 2-2 in November, and then you probably have an 8-win season if you're going in 6-2.
That would be the math, indeed. Tim jumps in and says, if Colorado and Syracuse had decided to play against each other anyways, directly disobeying the NCAA, what could the NCAA have done? Which I don't even know why the NCAA is so adamantly opposed to this. Like, I don't get their objections. And if player safety is the thing, then just stop talking. Like, I just don't even want to hear it.
I mean, the worst they could do is fine them, I think. Like,
okay, so you raise a bunch of money at the gate and pay the fine off. Who cares?
Yeah,
like,
a ban would be so wildly unpopular. And I mean, people are already calling for the dissolution of the NCAA anyway. I think you speed the process here by stopping some. Let the schools decide. This should be in the schools' hands. NCAA should have nothing to do with it. It's not going to count in the record books.
Yeah.
So just say we're not going to. You can play it. We're just not going to count it. Okay, great.
And that literally is what happens with scrimmages every single year in every other sport that happens. Off-season scrimmages, they play the game, but they don't count it. Some of them, they don't even take score. Like, they just let them go and play. And like, people will be taking score over on the side and all this kind of stuff. But like, it's just, I don't know. It's silly. And I think we've passed the place right now where the NCAA is making any sense in a lot of the things that they're doing. And hear me clearly. The cautionary tale of Nico Iamaleava.
I was going to ask you about this before we got off.
I'm going to take my ball and go home. The cautionary tale of him should warn you about the dangers of the NCAA dragging their feet in a scenario in which everybody says this is what we should be doing. Everybody acknowledges we should be doing this, and the NCAA drug their feet on NIL for years until people just decided, fine, we'll just do it ourselves. They put on a little freaking glove like Thanos and is like, all right, fine, I'll just go do it myself. And we ended up right here where they snapped away half the population of the freaking collegiate sports. That is because everybody's lost in the blip that is the NCAA portal at this point in time, doing a bunch of crazy stuff, trying to hold out. Listen, Nico wasn't the first person. Actually, the first person to do this was what's your boy's name? Jaden Rashada, before he even got into college, sitting there trying to hold out for more money. And he ends up bouncing around from program to program and becoming this guy who's largely unpopular with whatever fan base he lands with because he seems like he's chasing after money. They're going to do this again, and somebody's going to say, screw it. There's going to be a collection of teams that's going to be like, fine, we'll just schedule our own thing, and you guys can figure it out later.
Yeah. And
it's going to become a mess. Nobody from the NCAA listens to the War Report. Fine. But hear me clearly.
Okay.
Figure this out before next spring, or it's going to turn into a dumpster fire.
Agreed. I want to get through these comments, but before we get out here, I want to revisit the Tennessee situation because I have some thoughts.
All right, we got one more before we can go into that, and we'll try to get to that quickly. How many, says Riley, dogs do you think this 2025 team has? Alex McPherson definitely is one of them, but who else is making a name for himself?
Good to see Alex out there, by the way. That young man battled some health issues, and I know it was tough for him, but it was really good to see him out there kicking again. Kicking may be the difference between a win, 1 or 2 wins this season. So certainly you want to see him back out there. Look, man, end of the day, Auburn's got a ton of dogs. Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb, Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman, this whole wide receiver room,
just don't put them all on a plane, and I think we'll be fine.
I know. You don't want too much horseplay. But look, Auburn's talent, and effort is not going to be the issue this year. It's just going to be about what kind of game plan they put together. And is it better than the guys who are coaching on the other side than you? And if they do, then they've got a chance to win a lot of ball games this year. And it sets up well. I think if you're Hugh Freeze, coach them up. That's it. Coach them up. That's why he wanted to simplify the spring. He'd rather spend more time getting his guys physically ready for the season than doing other things. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. So,
yeah. And Lawrence asked the question earlier, so we'll pivot into the conversation with this. Do you all have Nico opinions? So
oh boy, do I. I want to start off by just acknowledging that what you said, the NCAA bears a lot of responsibility for this mess that is, right? You ignored it. And without a set of unified rules, this is where we're headed. My girlfriend's best friend is a Tennessee grad, and her dad is also a Tennessee grad. But they asked, what I thought about this situation last night. We're out to dinner for her birthday, and I just told them, look, man, at the end of the day, greedy parents have been a part of the process for a very, very long time.
That's a fact.
Right? And from what we know, it feels like his dad is driving a lot of this process. But if you didn't think that the holdout, which is what this is, was coming to a college near you, you're being a little tiny bit naive. And that's essentially what this is. He thought he had Tennessee over the barrel, holding out this late in the process. And Josh Heupel did the most gangster thing ever. Just said, fine, and bounce.
Yeah.
Because you are already making 7 figures, and I've got to focus on coaching a football team. But that's not dissimilar from what happens at the pro level.
Yeah.
You got your deal. Now you want more. And what it prompted Tennessee fans to start posting Nico lowlights. All over Twitter, Ike. Which one of these throws is worth $4 million? So if you want to nitpick it, they can make a case against it. Now, I'm not look, man, at the end of the day, I'm just kind of at some point, some money is enough money, and you just go out and win football games. Go out and win football games. I want these guys to get paid. I've been labeled as anti-NIL at some point. No, man, I want them to get paid. Just understand, if you cannot want the money and not all these other things that come with it. Now you got your coin, and you want more. And everybody is falling into the trap of thinking that there's an endless bucket of money for them to get paid from. There's not. Guys, there's not. Outside of football and most sports, they are begging for their share of the pie. And if you're asking for the investment, you better be Janai Broom levels of good. Now, we know, reportedly, Janai got the largest NIL contract in the history of Auburn to return to Auburn basketball. Boy, did they benefit from that. But you know what we didn't hear? We didn't hear a bunch of mess in the process. He got his NBA draft evaluation, Ike, and he sat down with coach. They had to make a decision. He decided to come back. They said, thank you for coming back. Here's what we'll get. We understand what you're probably giving up to come back. Nico's not in the same situation. Is he a guaranteed top 10 draft pick if he leaves Tennessee? I don't know his situation. I don't even know if he can leave. He can go pro. But I'm just saying.
Now this would be his first year. After this year, I think this would be his first pro eligible year. But yeah, I don't know. To answer your point, is he a top 10 draft pick? No. Is he even a top 5 QB recruit in that class? I would argue no.
No, right, yeah. So what makes you think that you could be holding out for that kind of money? And now they're backtracking, and it was Nakos from On3 was getting drug across the internet for reporting on this. And as it turns out, a lot of people OP'd an apology. There were some Tennessee fans that were trying to say, oh, this is just a basic, contract renegotiation. It's college. There's no such thing as a basic contract renegotiation.
Yeah.
This is the first time a lot of this stuff is happening. And Josh Heupel has every right to say, I'm not dealing with this. You know why? Because he's not supposed to have anything to do with this at all. All I know is we had practice and you missed it. I don't care why you missed it, because I'm not the one that's paying you right now. Until that House bill passes, and we talk about all the time, that $20.5 million pot becomes manageable by a representative of the university, he really has nothing to do with it. So I'm not sitting here and having a conversation with you after you're already getting paid 7 figures. Yeah. And I hope that more coaches send the type of message that Josh Heupel sent and said, you know what? We're not playing this game either. Until it's him that's saying, okay, here. And still, he still has the right, even if he still has the right to say, yeah, what do you want?
And the other portion of this that I think gets lost in this conversation, which has been brought up, I think more so from the Tennessee folks who are frustrated, is he wasn't even fulfilling his end of the bargain. And I've tried my best to stress this from the beginning of NIL. NIL is not pay for play. It is not. You fulfill your NIL contract by doing a bunch of other stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with the sport in which you are there at that university to perform. Now, they may determine how much money you get to do that by your popularity, and that popularity is directly related to how good you are. Or how, and really it's more so how popular you are coming in, because some of these guys are getting a bunch of money before they played a single down snap minute of whatever the sport is. It's not pay for play. And so it's not just about, well, the value of what this other person has done on the field is equivalent to the value of what I provide on the field. That's not how it works, right? Your popularity is what is supposed to guarantee you a contract. And you have responsibilities to do more than just show up and be an athlete. You're supposed to show up to appearances. You're supposed to sign stuff. You have to do these other things because it's about your name, your image, and your likeness.
Facts.
You tarnish that name, image, and likeness by doing 2 things: not showing up for appearances when you're supposed to be there, because then nobody wants to book you, and playing poorly.
Yep.
This kind of thing tarnishes Nico's name, image, and likeness, whether he wants to like that or not.
Facts.
And that is the reality of an NIL space. It is not a contract for you to be a football player. And if people can find a way to separate those things in their mind, they would find themselves in a much better place when they start having conversation around NIL. And we've done a poor job of separating that in people's minds, because all we're seeing is athletes being paid. You're not being paid to be an athlete. You have the opportunity to be paid because you are an athlete. And those are not the same thing. They're not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is the important. Please say that again for the people in the back. I don't even want to try to repeat it. That last sentence.
You're not being paid to be an athlete. You have the opportunity to be paid because you are an athlete. If you were not an athlete, most of these people would not know your name, would not care about your image, and have no desire to utilize your likeness. Your athletic ability affords you that opportunity, and the better you are at being an athlete, the more money you have the potential to make, but you still got to go do some other stuff. It's not just show up and play football. It's not just show up and play basketball. That is not what you are being paid for. And if you don't do these other things, you risk the opportunity to make more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is what it is. That's just kind of the nature of what it is. I don't know another way to describe the reality of it. And we can try to paint it as a separate reality because we don't like it, or because we think that it doesn't change it. It doesn't.
Right. Let me say this. There's always, it sounds like his dad was acting as his agent. right? And I'm not claiming to be an expert on this situation. I'm based on what's been reported. I'm telling you, it sounds like his dad was acting as his agent.
Mhm.
And whether it's a dad or an actual agent or whoever, right? You are trusting that person to understand the complexities of the negotiation on a level that you do not. So it's why you don't see a lot of athletes negotiating their own contracts. You know why? And I've had this exact conversation with current and former Auburn athletes. And it's this: what you think is important to your value is not always what these business people think.
Facts.
And you need somebody who understands what they think is important and
Because
how.
at the end of the day, they're cutting the check. So that's
Correct.
what matters.
Yeah,
What
so they
you
hold all the
valued
power.
is not, it doesn't matter. Oh,
Right.
well, I'm this. And
That's it.
who
Right.
cares?
And so,
I don't care. That, so contextually, right? Like we at the War report on Auburn sports, right? And I can put this out there in front of people. We've tried to do some things in the Birmingham area with our product, and it is not as popular because, unfortunately, a vast majority of the Birmingham market is split between Auburn and Alabama fans. So exclusively Auburn content in a Birmingham market doesn't hold the same value to the people, regardless of how good we feel our product is. It's not the product they want to pay for because that's not what they value in this market.
yeah.
So just because you have a product that is good and you have metrics to show that it is good does not mean it holds value to the people who want to cut the checks for it.
Correct. Yeah. Now, if there is a argument to be made for why it is more valuable than they think, it takes a very skilled salesperson. And as somebody who did corporate sales for 20 years before I got into this, right? Like I can tell you that's why I made a lot of money doing that. It was explaining to the people that cut the checks why they should pay more in almost every situation for what I had versus what other companies could offer. And we were always more as the in-house, technology solution for conferences. So, you have my point where I was going with this is you when you get a bad agent, this is what happens.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll tell you, it was happening before. Take the money out of it. It was happening before with agents essentially advising kids to leave college, selling them that their value in the draft was higher than what it was. And then they got in the draft and they found out that they weren't. One of the biggest examples I have of this was you remember a tight end we had when we were in school, Robert Johnson.
Rah, yeah.
You're a big rah-rah. He was a monster at Auburn. And he had an agent talk him into leaving school a year early. And I was like, why is he? I think he needs another year. They told him he would be at worst a third-round draft pick. And rah-rah went out and bought himself a Chrysler 300M. And he was driving around campus and all this stuff, Ike. And, he declared. And then didn't get drafted. And if you asked him whether he should have stayed in school another year, I promise you 10 times out of 10, he would have stayed, knowing what he knows now. But somebody told him that his value was higher than what it actually was. Right. And reality hit him really quickly on draft day. So what you have here with Nico is he let somebody act on his behalf that grossly overvaluated the leverage that he had in this situation.
Right. And let's be clear. This is not a statement to say that Nico does not deserve $4 million. He may. But you gotta make sure the person you're asking agrees with that.
Agrees with you. Right. Yeah. That's it. Or maybe I have no control over whether you get $4 million or not. Because they have a poor understanding of what that pot of money looks like. This is why we will continue to report on that $20.5 million pot, which is really $18 million, and the division of how that's split up amongst the programs. I've been polling programs and ADs and having conversations to see like what are people putting toward women's basketball, right? Aggressively, Ike, it's 4 to 5% maybe that women's basketball is getting at universities that have a commitment to women's basketball. Out of $18 million, it's right about $900K. The average women's basketball program could do damage with like 4 to 500K. So if you're getting that, that's on the high side of what they're getting. So imagine, you're only getting, and like I said, that's on the high side. So imagine, you only got 300K and some girl comes through and is talking about something, I need 200.
Right.
I only got 300K. What do you think? I could pay you, but you got nobody to play with. So it's a poor understanding of the business, and then you're advising athletes with your poor understanding of the situation. So if I were advising Nico, I got to know how much money Tennessee is playing with to know whether $4 million is realistic or not. Because maybe they have it, but they've decided, like, look, we need offensive linemen, we need this, we need that, we're going to go after this. And if we give you that money and you got nobody to throw to, or like, you know what I mean? Or the defense sucks and we're losing, because their job is to make sure that the program wins, not just Nico.
Right.
It's not just you. And in certain situations, we've seen players with a proven pedigree, like Tom Brady, take less money. We knew. I mean, he's always been worth more than his contracts at New England for a long time. And he said, look, man, but I get it. We need players. And if I eat up, there's a cap. And if I eat up all the money, I can't complain about who I'm playing with. If anything, he wanted to win. And that's why I go back to saying, like, at some point, you've got to make a decision whether it's money or it's winning that's important to you. Because if it's just money, you're going to find yourself in this situation with a lot of organizations. What a cautionary tale he's made himself to NFL teams ahead of being drafted.
Yeah.
You're going to be a night. If I'm an NFL team, right out there, I'm not dealing with, get an agent. I'm not dealing with your dad. He just almost ruined your college career. But, I don't know why people think there are only a few players in a position that they are so good that they can essentially make demands of a program. Who's that good right now in college football, right? Maybe like Quinn Ewers? But
even he, I don't think he could command too much because the guy behind you, they're like, all right, fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we recruited at a high level for this reason. Right. I'm trying to think. Is there a guy that's just so good at college football right now that they could say, if I hold out, the program will cave immediately? I'm sitting here and I can't think of that guy. Chat, help me out here. Is there a guy in college football right now that you could say, like, Cam Coleman is good, but if he started playing games, I have no doubt that Auburn is in a place in that wide receiver room that they could move on from him and make a star out of somebody else. That's how they've recruited that room. So, yeah, this to me, this is such a cautionary tale about getting bad advice. And it sucks, Ike, when it's family. Because he might feel some obligation to let his dad do what he's doing. But it might just be time for him to say, look, Dad, I love you, bro, but I got to get a real agent. You have made me the laughingstock of college football and simultaneously lowered my value to the NFL. Because he is not so generational that some team is going to take a flyer on him regardless of all these other issues. Teams are wisening up, man. They're just like, look, man, we'd rather have a down year than deal with a player that's going to tear apart our organization.
Yeah.
So, those are my thoughts on the Nico situation. Like, I'm really looking at Dad, and I'm like, dude, look at the mess you created. These were all quiet conversations should have been had, but none of them should have involved him not showing up to practice. I think he put out a statement later that said he doesn't care about money. He just wants to play. And I was like, it's too late to say that.
Yeah.
If you didn't care about money, you would have showed up to practice.
Right.
You would have showed up to practice, and then you would have continued those conversations.
Right. Because you opted to not play while saying that's all you want to do. Like it's just can't be both of them, young man.
Yeah, you can't be both sides of that coin, right?
Yeah.
And what I hope, kind of bringing this full circle back to Auburn, what I hope is that I hope that there's somebody on the Auburn side using this as a teaching point for Auburn athletes about business and about life. But in my conversation with athletes, I think the thing that always got me the most was, and I'm talking about Auburn athletes specifically, is that they are almost always deluded about how much money is actually available. They think it's an endless pot, and the person that they're asking can just snap their fingers and say, "Yep, you can have $50K more." No, man, there's a whole, like, the money may be there, but they maybe had other plans for it. You think you're the only one trying to get paid? They're having this conversation 300x across all the sports. And that adds up really quickly. Think about how many athletes have deals, Ike, worth less than $1,000 a month. But if you got 300 of them, you got a lot of checks you got to write. And that money dries up quick. So, yeah, I don't know. I think people see the big dollars and they always say, oh, well, this is a bunch of money. Like, they're making all these money off this kid. Yes, they are making money off the kids. And yes, there is enough money available for most kids to get paid something. But once you start climbing into the millions of dollars, right, you have to be prepared for the fact that somebody may not see your value the same way you see it. And that was the thing that always struck me in these conversations with these athletes, where I tried to tell them, like, look, you're about to sit down with the money people and make an emotional argument for why you deserve more money. And I'm telling you, it's going to fall flat. And almost every single time it did. I don't understand why they don't see what I'm talking about. I told you that conversation wasn't going to go well. They're not seeing. You have to try to learn the business and see it from their end. But, I show up to practice. I'm okay, great. You show up to practice. That's what you're supposed to do. And there are kids making zero that do that. So, yeah, it's a hard conversation for me, and it lands somewhere in the middle. And I think that more guys just need to be educated on the process. And, in Auburn, in Alabama, you have to be registered as an NIL agent. I'm not sure what the laws in Tennessee are, but, there is no scenario, I think, in any state where, and let me choose my words carefully here, where an unqualified family member should be allowed to act as an agent. I'm using the word unqualified because negotiation is a skill. And the most skilled negotiators, like, this is why you hear so much about, like, with Jimmy Sexton.
Mm-hmm.
That dude knows how to get his guys paid, and you'll pay a little bit higher of a percentage if you use Jimmy Sexton. But, boy, he's going to squeeze every dollar out he can because he knows what resonates with these people. And when the GMs see him coming, they're like, oh, Jimmy's on the case. That man makes a lot of money. What was the guy? Drew Rosenhaus is another one.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are super agents for a reason. And somebody's dad stepping in thinking that he can be Jimmy Sexton light. Like, give me a break, man. Sit down and stop ruining your kid's career.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for Nico. Hopefully he finds a landing spot, and whatever he's looking for, he's able to get that. But this felt like a very poor way to handle it. And again, it's playing out in the public eye a little bit too much, and everybody's got an opinion on it. And I think that's hurting the case even more so for them, but we'll see how it pans out. All right, a couple more super chats. We'll get out of here. Mercy says, rest in peace. What he meant to say there is Kyron Lacey. So Kyron Lacey recently, don't want to get into too much of that because details are still coming out, but he did pass recently, and very unfortunate kind of fall from grace there for Kyron Lacey, but RIP to him. Exclusive TV, college sports is now semi-pro due to NIL.
Simply put, yeah, it is.
It is what it is. But I have a lot of opinions on this that I won't get into today. I've expressed those opinions many times, but hopefully, again, they find some way to get some guardrails around this, because I do believe players deserve to have some sort of money that they can have access to in these ways, and we'll see where it goes from here. All right. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, Mike G?
Nah, look, spring is over. We'll keep an eye on summer workouts to see how it goes. Once we know who's going to media days, we'll be sure to let you guys know. Certainly we'll be there. But guys, join up as a member, man. There's a lot. There's going to be a lot of exciting stuff, I think, happening for Auburn sports over the next few months. Some changes with women's basketball. I don't know if you guys were following any of that stuff, but I was talking to Ike this weekend about girls committed and decommitting within hours. There's lots to talk about, so please follow us.
Yes, indeed. All right, well, tell the people other ways that they can get involved with the War Report's work.
Hit that join button, guys. $5.99 a month. We appreciate you guys for helping us grow our community. Also want to thank our title sponsor, Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use the codes below to get your discount on all of Golden's Cast Iron's many great products that they sell there. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Also, want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever it ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Great longtime sponsors of the War Report. Also, check us out on podcasts, guys. Every single podcast platform, the Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec pods. Bring you guys lots of audio-only content. Go to warreport.com and check out our merch store. We got lots of great War Report merch. I saw a couple of you guys with some War Report stuff on yesterday up in Auburn. We appreciate you guys. This is another great way to support what we do and get something in return. Ike designs all this stuff, and I'm telling you, the War Report dry fit with the logo in the middle, the white logo in the middle, is probably my favorite. That's the thing I wear every day. I love that thing. And so my girlfriend is like, you wear that all the time. I'm like, damn, right, because this is what greatness feels like. I put it on every day, and I go do dope stuff. Again, visit the War Report merch store, # get your weight up, and get your War Report gear today.
Yes, indeed. Matter of fact, I actually dropped some new merch out there for you guys. The Born to Boog set is out there now. So if you guys want to go and cop that, that's on the store right now. Shout out to, before we get out of here, Auburn baseball, who has already won the series versus LSU, number 3 in the country, 2 of 3 taken. They've got their 3rd game today. I don't know what time it is or if it started already, but they've already won the series by getting the first 2 going for the sweep today. Shout out to Auburn softball, who is trying to make some tracks there. Auburn track and field is doing really good right now. Tennis is heading into the SEC tournament right now. Golf is headed into the SEC. Like, it's just so many great things going around Auburn sports, and hopefully you guys are keeping abreast of all of those things. Before you get out of here, make sure you're doing us a favor and sharing the content with somebody. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are out there at the War Report, X and Instagram, TW Report on TikTok. As Mike G said, a lot more film review coming for you guys in the coming days. I've already dropped the first of my Damari Alston film review from last year. That is out there for my Green Name gang. I'll get into the second half of that sometime this week. I've got Jeremiah Cobb coming for you. I got transfer stuff coming for you. I got so much film over the summer we are going to get into, but we are out of here. Mike, you guys at some point in time, I guess during the week, are going to be talking about transfer portal stuff, because we did have Terrence Love, who hit the portal recently, and how that's going to impact things. So much more conversation happening now that spring has ended and we're getting into this final stretch before we get football back this fall, man. But we are out of here until the next time. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.